Golden Blooded, everybody. And if you are a college football fan, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. That is all we do here every single day. And send gear to represent your team and yourself to Golden Blooded. I guarantee you, if you send it to me, I will put it in my background. Send your gear to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Hey guys, I'm in the car line, so I have to do a car video today. A little bit of a busy day today. I did work on another video in studio earlier today, so I'll edit that and try to get that one out as well. But today I wanted to talk about the surprise that is the Pac-12. I'm going to talk about both the Pac-12 and the Big Ten as far as what are their chances of getting to the playoffs. And the Pac-12 has came out surprisingly strong. In fact, here are how all these conferences are doing as far as number of ranked teams in the AP Top 25 going into Week 6. Well, the AAC has one ranked team, number 24 Cincinnati. Independents have one ranked team, number 16 BYU. The Big Ten, just 3 ranked teams. Number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Michigan, and number 10 Penn State. So just 3 ranked teams, but all 3 in the top 10. The ACC has 4 ranked teams. Number 5 Clemson, number 14 NC State, number 15 Wake Forest, number 22 Syracuse. The Big 12 has 4 ranked teams as well. Number 7 Oklahoma State, number 17 TCU, number 19 Kansas, and number 20 Kansas State. And the Pac-12 is number 2 as far as number of ranked teams. Number 6 USC, number 11 Utah, number 12 Oregon, number 18 UCLA, and number 21 Washington, for a total of 5 ranked teams. In the SEC, number 1 still, of course, we all know that. 7 ranked teams. Number 1 Alabama, number 2 Georgia, number 8 Tennessee, number 9 Ole Miss, number 13 Kentucky, number 23 Mississippi State, number 25 LSU. We all know that the SEC will make the playoffs no matter what. Whoever wins the SEC makes the playoffs. The only question is, do they send multiple teams? And they have a good chance of once again sending multiple teams. However, if the Pac-12 gobbles up one of those spots, the SEC might be relegated to just one spot, and that is the SEC championship. So I want to look at the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and see what their chances are of getting to the playoffs this year. I think the Pac-12 has one of their highest chances of making the playoffs in at least 5 years. But first, let's look at the Big Ten, because it comes down to 3 teams. Number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Michigan, and number 10 Penn State. All 3 of these teams are 5-0, and all 3 of these teams play each other. So I want to look at who they have to play and where, and are there any maybe tough games outside of the 2 teams that they have to play out of this group. First up, Ohio State. They are 5-0. They are the highest ranked team out of the bunch. They have to go on the road to number 10 Penn State, and they get number 4 Michigan at home. They do have one maybe tough game, and that's at Maryland. I think Maryland is on the verge of being a top 25 team. Did scare Michigan in the big house, so that could be a tough game for Ohio State. Next up, number 4 Michigan, also 5-0. They get number 10 Penn State at home, but they have to go on the road to number 3 Ohio State. But outside of those 2 tough games, I don't see any maybe tough games. They've already played Maryland, and they beat them. And finally, number 10 Penn State. They're also 5-0. They have to go on the road to number 4 Michigan, and then they get number 3 Ohio State at home. They have one maybe tough game, and it's Maryland, but at least they get Maryland at home. Out of all 3 of these teams, schedule-wise, I think Penn State has the best path. They do have to go on the road to Michigan, but they get Ohio State at home. So if you had to pick your poison, I think that's the one that you would pick instead of going on the road to Ohio State and Michigan at home. Second best shot I'm going to give to Ohio State. Yes, they have to go on the road to number 10 Penn State, but if they clear that, they get number 4 Michigan at home. And I don't think Michigan is going to go on the road and beat Ohio State. However, there is that one tough game, maybe tough game, at Maryland. And then finally, Michigan. I just don't like the fact that they have to go on the road to number 3 Ohio State. I don't think that they're going to win that. So they would need Ohio State to lose 2 games just to make the Big Ten championship. So as of right now, I do think that Penn State has the best shot of making the playoffs out of the Big Ten. But the Big Ten could send 2 teams to the playoffs this year, because these 3 teams look really, really good. The Big Ten could send 2 of these 3 teams to the playoffs. I think there's a good chance that could happen, actually. And finally, let's talk about the Pac-12. How good of a chance does the Pac-12 actually have to get to the playoffs? Let's start at the bottom and work our way up, starting with number 21 Washington. They are 4-1. They just lost to UCLA on the road. That did surprise me. I thought Washington would beat them. Here's what the rest of their schedule looks like. At Arizona State, Arizona, at Cal, bye week, Oregon State, at number 12 Oregon, Colorado, and Washington State. So out of all these teams in the Pac-12 that might have a chance to make the playoffs, Washington might have the easiest path, but I don't think that they have the best team. All right, let's move on to the next team. Number 18, UCLA. They are undefeated. They just beat Washington at home. That was a big win. Here's a look at their schedule, and it's pretty rough. Next game, they get number 11, Utah, at home, though. If that was on the road, that's a loss no matter what. But it is at home. They just beat Washington at home. That's a winnable game. Then they get their bye week. At number 12, Oregon. That's a tough one right there. Stanford at home. At Arizona State. Arizona. USC, but at home. And then finally at Cal. You do play 3 ranked teams, but 2 of those ranked teams are are at home. UCLA might have a better shot of making the playoffs than people realize. I'm telling you, this is shocking. Let's keep moving though. Number 12, Oregon. They are 4-1. Here's a look at their schedule. At Arizona, and they get their bye week. Then they get number 18 UCLA at home. At Cal, at Colorado, Washington at home, Utah at home, and then at Oregon State. Oregon can't lose another game if they want to make the playoffs. But here's the thing. This is a tough schedule, but all three ranked opponents that Oregon gets are at home. That's why I think Oregon has the third easiest schedule, but they did pick up that one loss. So I don't know if their chances are quite as high as UCLA. They can't afford one more loss. Alright, let's keep moving. Number 11, Utah. They're also 4-1, so they can't afford a loss. Here's a look at their schedule. At number 18, UCLA. That is a road game, but not a tough road game. I mean, UCLA isn't known for their tough home environment, so we'll see how that goes. After that, number 6, USC. So back-to-back ranked teams. After that, a bye week. At Washington State. Do not overlook that game. That is a tough game. Washington State is a good team, even though they're 3-2 and not ranked. They're a good team. They're going to make a bowl. Then Arizona, Stanford, at number 12, Oregon, at Colorado. Utah might be the best team besides USC in the Pac-12. I just don't like this remaining schedule. At UCLA, at Oregon, and at Washington State. I do not see Utah finishing the rest of the season undefeated. And if you pick up one loss, you're out of the conversation. So I do think that Utah will be out of the conversation. This is just too tough of a remaining schedule for Utah to make the playoffs. They had to win that road game against Florida for them to have any shot to make the playoffs. That kind of doomed them right off the bat. But they're still a good team. And finally, number 6, USC at 5-0. USC has looked the best out of all these teams. USC is the highest ranked. Well, what about their remaining schedule? Next, they get Washington State at home. Keywords, at home. I like their chances. After that, on the road to number 11, Utah. That's going to be a very, very tough game. And I do have Utah winning that game. And they get their bye week. At Arizona, Cal, Colorado, at number 18, UCLA. Do not underestimate that game. It's going to be a rivalry game. It'll be packed out, although most of the fans might be USC fans. Who knows? And then finally, Notre Dame. So I don't think USC's remaining schedule is too tough, and they can afford one loss. So maybe losing on the road to Utah and then beating number 18 UCLA on the road, I think that's very, very doable. In my preseason, I had USC going 10-2, losing both of those road games. And that still could be what happens. But I'm not liking what I see with UCLA. I know they're undefeated, and I know they just beat a good team in Washington, but that defense has to get a whole lot better if they want to beat USC at home. I think USC has an excellent chance of making the playoffs. They can afford one loss, so that road trip to Utah can be a loss, as long as it's not a blowout loss. If that's a blowout loss, then that might hurt USC's chances of getting to the playoffs. Then they might need some help. Otherwise, if it's a close loss, I think USC still gets to the playoffs if that's their only loss and they win the Pac-12 championship. So chances of getting to the playoffs, number 1, USC. They can afford a loss, and I do think that they lose at Utah. Number 2, I'm actually going to say UCLA. They can still afford a loss, and their schedule isn't completely brutal. If they beat Utah at home, then they can lose on the road to number 12, Oregon, and still have a shot to make the playoffs as long as they win the Pac-12 championship. So I like their chances. I really do. Number 3, this is where I have Oregon. They can only afford one more loss, but all of their games against ranked opponents are at home. So maybe they can finish the rest of the season undefeated. Number 4, Washington. Yes, I think Washington has a better shot of getting to the playoffs over Utah, even though I think Utah has the better team simply because of their schedule. Basically, all Washington has to do is go on the road and upset number 12 Oregon, and as long as they win the rest of their games and win the Pac-12 championship, Washington could very well get to the playoffs. See, the problem with Utah is their schedule is just way too tough. You had to win that first game on the road to Florida to have any shot to make the playoffs. Now you have to go on the road and beat UCLA, beat USC at home, which I think you do, and go on the road and beat number 12 Oregon. And I just don't think Utah is going to be able to do that. It's too tough of a schedule for Utah to make the playoffs. That's just my opinion. Y'all let me know in the comments section. Number 1, who do you think wins the Big Ten? Number 2, do you think the Big Ten puts in 2 teams into the playoffs? Number 3, do you think the Pac-12 finally puts a team into the playoffs? And number 4, who do you think has the best shot out of all the teams in the Pac-12 to make the playoffs? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.